The second I pushed open the front door, I heard a baby crying. Chloe ran out of the bedroom, looking panicked, cradling a tiny infant wrapped in a pink blanket. Liam, you're home early. I stared at the child in her arms, my mind going completely blank. When I had left for my business trip 3 months ago, Chloe's stomach had been perfectly flat. Now, she was holding a baby that looked at least 2 or 3 months old. Whose baby is that? As the key turned in the lock, I had heard a stranger's voice from inside. Ma'am, the baby's crying again. Is she hungry? I froze at the entrance, double-checking the apartment number. It was definitely my home. Stepping inside, I saw a woman in her 50s, a nanny, clearly, trying to soothe the infant in the living room. When she saw me, she jumped. And you are? I'm the owner of this place, I said, dropping my suitcase. Who are you? Chloe stepped out of the kitchen, a bottle in her hand. Her face went deathly pale when our eyes met. Liam, you said you weren't coming back until the day after tomorrow. Liam, you said you weren't coming back until the day after tomorrow. My flight got bumped up. I stared at the infant in the nanny's arms. So, do you want to explain what's going on here? Chloe bit her lip and walked toward me, reaching out for a hug. I stepped aside, avoiding her. Liam, honey, please just sit down. I'll explain everything. I don't need to sit. I pointed at the baby. One question. Whose is it? The nanny looked at me, then at Chloe, and wisely retreated into the bedroom with the child. Chloe took a deep breath. It's ours. I thought I'd misheard her. Ours? Yes. Chloe nodded, her eyes welling with tears. Liam, she's really ours. I thought back to the weeks before I left for the Denver project. Chloe had been acting a bit off. She was nauseous in the mornings and had no appetite. I'd asked her if she had a stomach bug or something. She'd brushed it off, saying it was just stress. Looking back now, she must have been pregnant then. Why didn't you tell me you were pregnant? Chloe wiped away a tear. I wanted to surprise you. A surprise. My voice rose. You think this is a surprise? I paced the living room, trying to force myself to stay calm. If the child was truly ours, she would have had to be pregnant 3 months ago. But there was a glaring problem. If this is our baby, why hide it? And the kid looks at least 2 or 3 months old. When exactly did you give birth? Chloe kept her head down, silent. I walked over and forced her to look at me. Chloe, I need an answer. I gave birth 2 months ago. 2 months ago. I did the math rapidly. Then when did you conceive? Her voice dropped to a whisper. Last October. I went numb. From last October until now was exactly 9 months. By a normal pregnancy timeline, the math worked. But there was one fatal flaw. Last October, I had been stationed at an out-of-state construction site for the entire month. I hadn't come home once. The last time Chloe and I had been intimate was late September. Chloe, I stared her down. I was gone for the entire month of October. How exactly did you get pregnant? Chloe's face turned ashen. Her hands began to tremble. I. Just then, the baby started wailing again. The nanny stepped out of the bedroom. Ma'am, she's really hungry this time. I glanced at the baby. She was healthy and chubby with delicate features. Objectively a beautiful child. But I wasn't in the mood for beauty. I needed the truth. Feed the baby first, I told Chloe. Then we're having a real talk. Chloe took the bottle and sat on the sofa, cradling the child. Watching them, my heart felt like it was being squeezed. If this really was my daughter, I should have been overwhelmed with joy. Instead, I felt nothing but confusion and a growing cold fury. Why hide it? Why let her go through labor alone? And most importantly, did the dates really align? I pulled out my phone and checked my work records from last October. It was there, plain as day. I've been on site for 31 days straight. The project was behind schedule, and I hadn't stepped foot back in the city. If Chloe got pregnant then. Wait, I remembered something. In late September, the few days I was home, Chloe had been acting strange. She claimed she wasn't feeling well and rejected any physical intimacy. We hadn't slept together at all during that window. So, when did she get pregnant? I looked up at Chloe as she fed the baby. A horrifying suspicion took root in my mind. Was this child even mine? Once the baby finished her bottle, she settled down. The nanny, sensing the tension, suggested taking the baby out for a stroll in the park to give us some space. The living room went quiet. Chloe sat at one end of the sofa. I sat at the other, a vast chasm between us. Start talking, I said. From beginning. Don't leave anything out. Chloe bit her lip, struggling to find the words. Last September, those few days before you left, I felt something was off. What kind of off? I was nauseous. I thought it was a digestive issue, she said. After you left, I went to the doctor. I found out I was pregnant. I frowned. Then why didn't you call me? I wanted to wait until you got back. I wanted to see your face when I told you. Her eyes filled with tears again, but I didn't realize that trip was going to last a whole month. So you decided to go through the first trimester struggles all by yourself? She nodded. I kept thinking I'd tell you when you got back, but then what? Then I saw how much more work you were taking on. You were always traveling. I was afraid that if I told you, you'd quit or pass up promotions just to stay home and take care of me. Anger flared in my chest. So you just decided to make that choice for me. I thought it would be an even bigger surprise once the baby was here. She started sobbing. I thought it would be a gift. I watched her cry, my emotions a tangled mess. If she was telling the truth, then I was the one at fault. I had been a workaholic, constantly away, ignoring her needs. But one question wouldn't let me go. Chloe, I need you to be honest with me. Did you, after we last saw each other in September, was there anyone else? No, she snapped, cutting me off. Liam, how could you even think that? Then explain the timeline, I said. A normal pregnancy is 40 weeks from the last period. If she was born 2 months ago, you would have conceived in late July or August. But you're saying she was born 2 months ago and conceived in October? That's only 7 months. Chloe froze. She clearly hadn't expected me to be that precise with the calendar. I might have the birth date wrong, she stammered. Maybe she was born a little over a month ago. I shook my head. You're lying, Chloe. I just looked at that baby. She's at least 2 months old. Silence fell over the room. Chloe looked down at the floor, her mouth shut tight. I stood up and paced. The more I thought about it, the less sense it made. The secrecy, the timing, her sheer panic when I walked through the door. A normal wife would be excited to show her husband their child, not terrified. I stopped and looked at her. Chloe, I'm asking you one last time. Whose baby is this? She looked up, her eyes wide with terror. It's yours. Then why do you look like you're about to faint? I'm not scared. I'm worried you're going to be mad. I took a deep breath. I'm giving you a choice. You tell me the truth right now, or I find out for myself. She began to shake. Ow, a DNA test, I said. If the baby is mine, you have nothing to fear. At the mention of a DNA test, the last of the color drained from her face. Why? Why would you do that? Because I need to know. I locked eyes with her. If your conscience is clear, you won't care about a test. Chloe stood up, trying to wrap her arms around me. Liam, please. Just trust me. She's our daughter. I stepped back, evading her touch. Your reaction is telling me everything I need to know. Just then, the doorbell rang. It was the nanny returning with the stroller. The baby was asleep, her face flushed pink and peaceful. The nanny carefully wheeled her into the nursery and told Chloe she was going to lie down in the guest room for a bit. I looked at the sleeping child. Truthfully, she was adorable. If she really was my flesh and blood, I would have been the proudest man on earth. But right now, all I felt was a hollow ache. Chloe, tomorrow morning, we're going to the clinic for a paternity test. Upon hearing those words, Chloe finally broke. She slumped to the floor, buried her face in her hands, and began to wail. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to keep it from you. Seeing her like that only solidified my suspicions. If the child were mine, she wouldn't be having a breakdown. Chloe cried for a long time while I just stood there, watching her coldly. When her breathing finally leveled out, I handed her a tissue. Are you ready to tell the truth? She took the tissue, wiped her eyes, and looked up at me. Liam, do you remember that October trip? Of course. I was gone for a month. During that time, I was home alone. I was lonely, and I was scared, she said softly. When I first thought I might be pregnant, I was so excited. I wanted to share it with someone. I nodded, signaling for her to continue. But you weren't here, and I didn't want to tell you over the phone, she said. I wanted to wait until you got back and tell you in person. And then, I ran into some problems. My heart rate spiked. What kind of problems? The first trimester was brutal. I was vomiting constantly, and then I started spotting. I was terrified. I didn't know what to do. Why didn't you call me? I tried, but you were always in meetings or on a loud job site. You were always so busy. I didn't want to add to your stress. I thought back. October had indeed been the peak of the project. I was working 16-hour days. Even when she did call, I'd usually give her a quick I love you and hang up after 2 minutes. So what happened? I couldn't handle it anymore. So I called my mom, Chloe said. She came down to stay with me. Your mom? When was she here? Mid-October, she said. She stayed for over a month. I frowned. I'd met Chloe's mother a few times. She was a traditional, straightforward woman. If she knew Chloe was pregnant, there was no way she wouldn't have called me to brag about becoming a grandmother. Your mom knew and didn't tell me? Chloe looked at the floor. Because I didn't tell her the whole truth. What does that mean? Chloe was silent for a long time before she finally spoke. Because I wasn't sure if the baby was yours. The words hit me like a physical blow. I stared at her, feeling the blood turn to ice in my veins. What did you just say? Chloe's tears started flowing again. Last September, After that big fight we had right before you left, I did something stupid. I remembered. Mid-September. I was stressed out of my mind. I'd come home in a foul mood, and we'd had a screaming match. I couldn't even remember what it was about now. Something trivial, but we had been cold to each other for days after. What did you do? My voice was a low growl. I went out for drinks with a friend. And then, it just happened. I hooked up with someone. She collapsed into a fresh wave of sobbing. I felt the room spin. I had to grip the back of a chair to stay upright. Who was he? Just some guy. You don't know him, she choked out. I never saw him again. I paced the living room, tried to process it. Everything clicked into place. Why she hid the pregnancy. Why she looked like she'd seen a ghost when I walked in. Why the DNA test terrified her. So the baby... I don't know who she is, Chloe said. The timing was so close. I couldn't tell. I sat back down on the sofa, feeling my entire world crumble. We had been married for 3 years. I thought we were solid. I thought that even if I worked a lot, she understood it was for our future. I never imagined she would betray me like this. And I certainly never imagined she would carry the lie this far. Liam, please let me explain. She reached for my hand, but I shoved her away. What's left to explain? I said coldly. You cheated, and then you tried to trick me into raising another man's child. I know I messed up, but I regret it so much, she sobbed. I've spent every day for the last 9 months in agony. I didn't know how to look at you, so you chose to lie instead. I looked toward the nursery where the baby was sleeping. That innocent little life might have nothing to do with me. Or she could be mine. Chloe, we have to face reality, I said. Tomorrow, we do the test. We find out who the father is. Chloe nodded weakly. And if she isn't yours? What happens then? I looked at the woman I thought I knew and realized she was a stranger. Then we get a divorce. That night, I slept in the guest room. Chloe was in the master bedroom with the baby, and I could hear her muffled crying through the wall. I lay there staring at the ceiling, unable to close my eyes. I replayed our 3 years of marriage over and over. We met in college, dated for 4 years, and then got married. I thought we were the perfect match. I was the provider, she was the nurturer. We were supposed to be happy. Maybe I'd missed the signs. I'd been gone so much. Maybe she felt abandoned. But betrayal is betrayal. There are no excuses. The next morning, I heard Chloe in the kitchen. She had made breakfast, eggs, bacon, and coffee. Liam, please eat something, she said tentatively. I looked at the food and felt nauseous. What time does the clinic open? 8, she said. But we need an appointment. I already made one, I interrupted. We're expected at 10. Chloe nodded and went back to the kitchen in silence. At 8, the nanny woke up. She saw the state we were in and didn't ask questions. She took over with the baby so we could leave. The drive to the clinic was silent. I drove. She sat in the passenger seat, an invisible wall between us. When we got there, we were ushered into a private room. The doctor was a professional middle-aged man. We just need a buccal swab from the father and the infant, he explained. Results should be back in 3 business days. The process was simple. A cotton swab against the inside of my cheek, then the baby's. The baby woke up and started crying, and Chloe quickly gathered her up to soothe her. Watching her hold the child, I felt a pang of something I couldn't name. If she was mine, I should have been the one holding her. But now I felt nothing but numbness. Mr. Miller, come by at 2 p.m. on Friday for the results, the doctor said. I nodded and we left. The next 3 days were a living hell. The atmosphere in the house was suffocating. I went to work like normal, came home, and kept to myself. Chloe tended to the baby, and I either worked in the den or watched TV in the living room. We didn't speak unless it was absolutely necessary. The baby was actually very good. She barely cried unless she was hungry, and mostly she just slept. Sometimes when she was awake, she would look at me and smile, that toothless, innocent grin that made my chest ache. No matter who the father was, the baby was innocent. Friday afternoon, we went back to the clinic. The doctor held a folder, his expression grave. Mr. Miller, based on the results. My heart was in my throat. Chloe gripped my arm, her hand shaking violently. You are not the biological father, the doctor said. The DNA profile shows a 0% probability of paternity. Hearing the words was almost a relief. At least the uncertainty was over. Chloe slumped into the chair, her strength leaving her. I helped her up, but my heart was stone. Chloe, it's time to talk. When we got home, I asked the nanny to take the baby for a walk. I needed the house empty. We sat across from each other at the dining table, the DNA report lying between us. The black and white data was the death certificate of our marriage. Anything else you want to say? I asked. Chloe curled into herself in the corner of the chair. I'm sorry, she whispered. I know words don't mean anything now. Do you even know who he is? She shook her head. I just know his name was Ryan. He worked at some ad agency. It was one night. Are you still in touch? No, she said. I never saw him again after that night. I nodded, already planning my next moves. Chloe, I want a divorce. She looked up, her eyes filled with despair. Liam, please. Can't you give me one more chance? A chance? I scoffed. You think I can just look at that baby every day and forget where she came from? I know I messed up. I've regretted it every single second. I've spent months wishing I could take it back, Chloe sobbed. But you can't, I said. And you kept me in the dark, making me look like a fool while I worked to support a life that wasn't mine. I was just so afraid you'd leave me. So you chose to lie to my face every day. I stood up. Chloe, that makes it so much worse. She went silent, her head bowed. I paced the room, trying to steady my breathing. What about the baby? I'll raise her, she said. I won't ask you for anything. How? I countered. You haven't worked in 3 years. You have no income. How are you going to support a child on your own? She bit her lip, looking helpless. It was true. She'd quit her job right after we got married, and we'd lived entirely on my salary. Raising a child alone would be a massive financial burden for her. But that wasn't my problem anymore. That's your choice, I said. You chose the betrayal. Now you have to deal with the fallout. Just then, the nanny came back with the baby. She took one look at our faces and realized the bomb had dropped. Sir, ma'am, should I leave? I looked at the baby. She was staring at me with wide, curious eyes, unaware of how complicated the adult world had just become. Mrs. Gable, please just look after her for a few more days, I said. Once we figure out the arrangements, we'll let you know. The nanny nodded and hurried the baby back into the nursery. I turned to go upstairs and pack. Liam, Chloe called out. Where are you going? I'm staying at a hotel for a few days. I need to clear my head, I said. In the meantime, start thinking about how we're going to settle this. Please don't go, she said, standing up to grab my arm. We can talk this through. I shook her off. There's nothing to talk about. The baby isn't mine. We're done. But this house, our life. I bought this house with my premarital savings, I reminded her. I'll give you some time to find a place, but you need to move out. My lawyer will be in touch about the rest. I went upstairs, threw some clothes into a duffel bag, and came back down. Chloe was still on the sofa, staring blankly at the wall. Chloe, I said. She looked up. Find that guy. Find Ryan. Tell him he has a daughter. Whether you like it or not, he has a responsibility here. She nodded slowly. I will. I grabbed my bag and headed for the door. Just as my hand hit the knob, she spoke one last time. Liam, is there really no hope for us? I paused, but I didn't turn around. Chloe, some things can't be fixed. There's no way back from this. I walked out and shut the door. I could hear her sobbing through the wood, but I didn't stop. I got into my car and drove. I called my best friend, Dave, while I was on the road. Hey, man, can I crash at your place for a bit? Sure, but what's up? Trouble with Chloe? Worse than trouble, I said. We're getting a divorce. The line went quiet for a few seconds. What happened? You guys were the golden couple. She cheated. The baby. It's not mine. What? Dave shouted. No way. Chloe? She didn't seem like the type. The DNA test says otherwise, I said bitterly. Damn. I'm so sorry, Liam. Where are you? I'll head home and meet you there. Dave lived in a high-rise downtown. We'd been friends since middle school and had keys to each other's places. When I got there, I sat in my car for a minute, just breathing. My life had been completely upended in less than a week. 3 days ago, I thought I was a father. Now, I'd lost a child and a wife in one breath. I went up, and Dave was already there with a bottle of whiskey waiting. Sit down. Tell me everything. I laid it all out from the moment I walked in and heard the crying to the clinic visit today. Dave was fuming by the time I finished. That's cold. To let you believe it was yours? That's a whole other level of messed up. It is what it is, I said, draining my glass. Now I just have to figure out the legal side. You're definitely divorcing. What choice do I have? Raise another guy's kid while looking at the woman who lied to me for a year. Dave nodded. Fair point. So what about the assets? We didn't have a prenup, I said. I was naive. I thought we didn't need one. Well, she cheated. In some states, that matters. You need a shark for a lawyer. I just want it over with, I said. She can have some cash to get on her feet, but I'm keeping the house and my 401k. We talked for a few hours. Dave asked what I was going to do next. Work, I said. I've got a lot of projects piled up. It'll keep my mind busy. Just don't bury yourself, man, Dave warned. You're a catch. You'll find someone better. I stayed in Dave's guest room that night. Lying there, I couldn't help but think about Chloe. We'd had 3 good years. If she hadn't gone out that night, we would be a happy family right now. But that's the thing about life. One choice can burn everything down. The next morning, I went into the office. My colleagues noticed I looked like hell, but I played it off as jet lag. That afternoon, Chloe called. Liam, I found Rhinestone. And he wants to see the baby. He wants to confirm it. I laughed humorlessly. Now he wants to be a dad? Where's he 9 months ago? Chloe was silent. He's coming over tomorrow. Good. Let him see his kid. Then you two can figure out the child support. Liam, I don't want to hear it, Chloe. Just get it settled so we can sign the papers. I hung up and tried to focus on my blueprints, but the baby's face kept flashing in my mind. It hurt more than I wanted to admit. I had bonded with that little girl in the few days I was home. Thinking about her not being mine felt like a physical phantom limb pain. A few days later, Chloe called again. Ryan saw her, and he admitted she's his. But he says he can't raise her. He wants me to handle it. I almost dropped my phone. Handle it? It's his kid. He can't just walk away. He said we were both drunk and it was an accident, Chloe said, her voice trembling. And he has a girlfriend now. He doesn't want this to ruin his life. Then sue him. I snapped. I hired a professional to handle the child support case against Ryan and started the divorce filings. It was more complicated than I expected. Even with her agreeing to the terms, there were endless forms for the house title and the bank accounts. The house was the biggest hurdle. Since we bought it after the wedding, she technically had a claim to half of it under state law. Mr. Miller, even with the adultery, she has a legal right to a portion of the home's equity, my lawyer told me. Unless you can prove egregious conduct. Is trying to pass off another man's baby as mine not egregious enough? It's a strong argument, but we need a paper trail of the affair to bolster the case, he explained. I ended up hiring a private investigator. It felt dirty, but I needed to protect myself. Within a week, the PI found the hotel records and even a witness, a bartender who remembered them leaving together that night in September. Seeing the evidence in a folder was a second gut punch, but it served its purpose. In the meantime, Chloe was struggling. Mrs. Gable, the nanny, could only stay during the day. At night, Chloe was on her own. The baby was going through a fussy phase, crying through the night. Sometimes Chloe would call me at 2 a.m., panicked, asking what to do for a fever or why the baby wouldn't latch. I'd answer, my heart heavy with a mix of pity and resentment. I'd tell her to check the temperature or call the pediatrician, then hang up and stare at the wall. A month later, the case against Rhinestone concluded. The court ordered him to pay $1,500 a month in child support. But Ryan, being the coward he was, immediately filed an appeal to drag it out. It meant Chloe wouldn't see a dime for months. My divorce from Chloe was finalized shortly after. Because of the PI's evidence and her own confession, I kept the house and the vast majority of our assets. She received a modest lump sum, enough to rent a small apartment and survive for a few months. Chloe, have you reviewed the final decree? I asked her. We were in my lawyer's office for the signing. I have, she whispered. I'm okay with it. You're sure? The lawyer asked. Once this is signed, it's permanent. She nodded and signed her name. Just like that, 3 years of marriage were erased. We were strangers again. Well, I wish you both the best in your new lives, the lawyer said. Outside the office, Chloe stopped me. Liam. I paused but didn't look back. Thank you for helping with the lawyer for the baby, she said. I know you didn't have to. I didn't do it for you, I said. I did it because the kid shouldn't suffer for your mistakes. She really likes you, you know, Chloe said, her voice cracking. Every time you came over to get your things, she gets so excited. My chest tightened, but I kept my voice flat. She's a baby. She doesn't know any better. Eventually, she'll forget I ever existed. Liam, can you come see her sometimes? I finally turned to look at her. Chloe, we're divorced. She's not mine. I have no place in her life. I know, there is no I interrupted. From today on, we're nothing to each other. I walked away and didn't look back. I moved back into my house, and Chloe moved into a cramped one-bedroom across town. Without them, the house felt cavernous and silent. I thought I'd be relieved, but the emptiness was louder than the crying had ever been. No one to greet me, no one to ask about my day, no dinner waiting. I buried myself in work. I took on more projects, traveled even more, and stayed at the office until 9:00 p.m. every night. My coworker said I'd changed. I was sharper, faster, but colder. I stopped going to happy hours. I went home to a dark house and ate frozen meals. They've tried to get me out. Liam, you're becoming a hermit. Work is for a living, not for hiding from life. I'm not hiding, I said. I'm just making up for lost time. For what? You're single and making 6 figures. What are you saving for? I didn't have an answer. Maybe I'll buy a boat. You still think about her, don't you? Dave asked point blank. No. Leet. Then why did you freak out last week when we saw that woman with a stroller at the coffee shop? You nearly dropped your latte. I couldn't deny it. My brain knew the truth, but my heart hadn't caught up yet. Every time I saw a baby in a pink blanket, my heart skipped a beat. This went on for 2 months until I ran into Chloe outside my office building. She was pushing the stroller, and the baby was sitting up now, looking alert. Chloe looked tired, with dark circles under her eyes, but she looked like she was managing. Liam, long time no see. Yeah, I said, my eyes drifting to the baby. She saw me and immediately started kicking her legs, making little happy noises. She remembered me. She still recognizes you, Chloe said, a sad smile on her face. I looked away. What are you doing here? Ryan's appeal was denied, she said. The court is garnishing his wages. I finally got the first check. That's good. Liam, she said as I started to leave. Are you doing okay? Fine. Work's busy, pays good. That's good. I still miss what we had. Sometimes. I looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't feel angry. Just tired. Chloe, the past is the past. We both need to move on. I know, she nodded. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Truly. Apologies don't change the facts, I said. Just don't make the same mistake with the next guy. The baby started babbling, reaching her tiny hands toward me. Chloe tried to quiet her. Sure, baby, don't fuss. But the kid was persistent, leaning out of the stroller, eyes locked on mine. I hesitated. I wanted to reach out, to feel that tiny hand grip my finger one more time. But I stayed still. I have a meeting. I have to go. Right. Take care, Liam. I walked away, but after 10 paces, I couldn't help but look back. Chloe was standing there, trying to soothe the crying child. A wave of complicated grief washed over me. That little girl wasn't mine, but for 2 months, I had loved her as if she were. Seeing her cry hurt, but I knew I couldn't be her father. I wasn't the man for that job. I walked faster, telling myself it was for the best. I tried dating again. Dave and some other friends set me up with a few women, professionals, smart, attractive. But I couldn't connect. Maybe it was too soon. Maybe my trust was just too broken. Every time a date went well, I'd find myself waiting for the lie to drop. I eventually stopped trying and went back to my routine of work and the gym. 3 months later, Dave called me with an update. Hey, I heard Chloe got a job. How do you know? My ex-girlfriend works at a boutique design firm. She said they hired a single mom who's been bringing her kid to the office because she can't afford full-time childcare. Sounded exactly like Chloe. I nodded to myself. She had to work. Ryan's child support wouldn't cover much in a city like this. Good for her. Apparently the firm is pretty cool about it, but the pay is low. Like entry-level low. It wasn't my concern. I'd helped her with the legal battle, and she had her settlement money. How she survived now was her own responsibility. Another month passed. I was on the verge of a major promotion. If I landed this next infrastructure project, my career would be set. I was finally feeling like I had my life back on track. Then, the phone rang at 11:00 p.m. A strange number. Is this Liam Miller? Speaking. Who is this? This is the nurse at the pediatric intensive care unit at City General. We have a patient here, a baby belonging to a Chloe Bennett. You're listed as the emergency contact. My stomach dropped. What happened? The baby has a severe fever and has started having seizures. It's critical, the nurse said. The mother is here, and she's a wreck. She asked us to call you. I'm on my way. I threw on a jacket and drove like a madman to the hospital. The ER was packed, but I found Chloe in the waiting area, huddled in a chair, her eyes red and swollen. She looked smaller than I remembered. When she saw me, she let out a choked sob. Liam, I didn't know who else to call. What's the status? She's in with the doctors. Chloe shook. They think it's viral meningitis. It's bad, Liam. It's really bad. I sat down next to her, the weight of the situation pressing down on me. Despite everything, this was a living, breathing child we were talking about. How did it get this far? She had a fever yesterday. I thought it was just teething. I gave her Tylenol, she sobbed. But this afternoon, she went limp and then started shaking. I've never been so scared. The doctor stepped out a few minutes later. Family of the Bennett baby? We both stood up. She's stable for now, but she needs to be admitted immediately for a spinal tap and 4 antivirals, the doctor said. We need to move fast. Do you have insurance or a way to cover the deposit? It's going to be an intensive stay. Chloe's face went white. She looked at me, her eyes full of a desperate, silent plea. I knew what she was thinking. She didn't have the money. Her insurance through the small firm was likely high deductible or non-existent. How much is the immediate deposit? I asked. $10,000 to start the private room and the specialist observation, the doctor said. $10,000 was nothing to me, but to Chloe, it might as well have been $1 million. Did you call Ryan? I asked her. I did, she whispered. He said medical emergencies aren't covered in the support agreement. He hung up on me. The doctor was waiting. Chloe looked like she was about to collapse. I struggled with myself. Every rational part of me said no. This isn't your kid. This isn't your responsibility. You've done enough. But then I looked through the glass of the ICU doors and saw that tiny, pale face hooked up to monitors. I'll pay it, I told the doctor. Chloe stared at me, stunned. Liam. It's a loan, I said, my voice gruff. You'll pay me back when you can. I will. I promise. I'll pay every cent. I went to the billing desk and swiped my card. $10,000. It was probably the most irrational thing I'd ever done. If Dave heard about this, he'd tell me I was a sucker. But I couldn't let a baby die because her biological father was a deadbeat and her mother was broke. The baby was in the hospital for a week. I told myself I was only staying to make sure my money wasn't wasted, but I found myself in that waiting room every night after work. On the third day, the baby woke up. When I walked into the room, she looked up and actually smiled through the tubes. My heart cracked open. She still loves you, Chloe said softly. Even after all this, you're the one she recognizes. I let the baby's tiny hand wrap around my thumb. It was warm and fragile. She's a fighter, I said. She's 6 months old today, Chloe noted. The doctor says she's going to make a full recovery. No brain damage. I nodded, feeling a massive weight lift. Good. Liam, Chloe said, looking out the window. I'm moving. Where? Back to Wisconsin. To my parents' farm, she said. I can't survive here alone. The city is too expensive, and I need help. My parents want to help with the baby. I realized it was the smartest thing she'd said in a year. That's a good plan. I found a job at a local library back home. It's not much, but with my parents helping, we'll be okay. And I'll send you checks, Liam. It might take years, but I'll pay you back. Don't worry about it right now, I said. Just focus on her. 2 days later, they were discharged. I helped them pack up their few belongings from the apartment. I drove them to the airport for their flight to Milwaukee. The baby was in her carrier, looking healthy and bright-eyed. She babbled at me the whole way to the terminal. Thank you, Chloe said at the gate. For everything. You saved her life. Just take care of her, I said. I will. Liam, I hope you find someone who deserves you. I really do. I looked at the baby one last time. She was drifting off to sleep, her little face peaceful. Goodbye, Chloe. Goodbye, Liam. I watched them go through security until they disappeared into the crowd. I walked back to my car, the sounds of the airport fading behind me. Driving home, I felt a strange sense of peace. The last 6 months had been a nightmare of betrayal and grief. I had lost a wife and a child I thought was mine. But I had also found something else, a sense of who I was. I wasn't a father, but I had acted like one when it mattered most. I had protected a life, and I had finally let go of the anger. I walked into my house. It was still quiet, still empty, but it didn't feel lonely anymore. It felt like a fresh start. I learned a lot from that year. I learned how to handle a knife in the back, how to carry a burden that wasn't mine, and how to make the hard calls. Most importantly, I learned the power of letting go. Some things are simply out of our control. Some people are only meant to walk with us for a few miles before our paths diverge. 3 months later, a postcard arrived in the mail from a small town in Wisconsin. On the front was a picture of a sun-drenched dairy farm. On the back, there was a photo taped to the card. It was the baby sitting up in the grass, laughing at the camera. She looked big, healthy, and happy. Underneath, in Chloe's handwriting, were 4 words. She's happy. Thank you. I looked at that toothless grin for a long time. She wasn't my daughter, but in the most critical moment of her life, I had chosen to be her guardian. That choice, whether it made sense to anyone else or not, was something I could live with. I put the photo on my mantle, went to my desk, and opened my laptop. I had a new project to start, a new life to build. And somewhere out there, a little girl was growing up happy. That was enough for me. Story complete.